Good evening and welcome to the October 19th regular board meeting. Ms. White, will you call a roll, please?
Ms. Pickle-Antonio?
Here.
Ms. Mooring?
Here.
Ms. Coates?
Here.
Ms. Horn?
Here.
Mr. Manley?
Sorry, we're a little off rhythm tonight. If you could all please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Just a warning, this room gets really cold. I feel the temperature dropping already. Is there a motion to approve minutes from the September 7th special board meeting, the September 7th board workshop meeting, the September 19th Finance and Facility Committee meeting, the September 21st Records Commission special meeting, and the September 21st regular meeting?
Make a motion.
Mr. Manley, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Mooring. Any modifications, corrections to the minutes at all? Okay, Mrs. White, can you call the roll, please?
Ms. Mooring?
Yes.
Ms. Mooring? Ms. Coates?
Yes.
Ms. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Ms. Pickle-Antonio?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. So you may, if you have watched our meetings before, you may notice our treasurer, Mr. Gooding, is not here this evening. And so by law, we are required to appoint a board member as the treasurer pro tem. Even though Mrs. White is our assistant treasurer is serving as treasurer, revised code requires us to actually name a board member as treasurer pro tem. I'm just going to suggest that we name me because I need to, after executive session, send the time and motion information to Mrs. White. So is there a motion to appoint, it's blank right now, but to appoint me as treasurer pro tem for the meeting? Thank you, Mrs. Coates. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Horn. Any additional discussion about that? Mrs. White, can you call the roll, please?
Ms. Coates?
Yes.
Ms. Horn?
Yes.
Ms. Manley? Mr. Manley?
That's all right. Yes.
Ms. Pickle-Antonio?
Yes.
Ms. Mooring?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We are on the best part of the agenda, which is our recognition section of the agenda. And we are going to begin. Did I miss something? Oh, I got so excited. I got ahead of myself. Sorry. Thank you for keeping me on track. Are there any recommended changes to tonight's agenda before we get to the fun part?
Yes, Madam President and Mrs. White, I have two changes that I'm recommending. First is to letter M, number 2, no motion is needed to appoint someone to the Gehenna Arts Council. And the second change that I'd like to recommend is to add the name Stephanie Duty to HR motion number 9 for a midday route of 1.5 hours. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Deagle. Is there a motion to modify the agenda as recommended by Dr. Deagle?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Mooring. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Horn. Any discussion about that? Okay, Mrs. White, whenever you're ready. I know you've got a lot that you're keeping track of over there. Whenever you're ready, if you could call the roll. Thanks.
Ms. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Ms. Pickle-Antonio?
Yes.
Ms. Mooring?
Yes.
Ms. Coates?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And then is there a motion to approve the agenda as modified?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Coates. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Mooring. Any discussion about that? If you could call the roll again, Mrs. White. Thank you.
Ms. Horn? Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Ms. Pickle Antonio,
Yes.
Ms. Mooring,
Yes.
Ms. Coates.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, now we're to the fun part, and Michelle can take a breath. We are going to begin with recognition of our National Merit semifinalists, and I'm going to let Dr. Deagle welcome them up.
Yes, good evening. If I may please welcome Samuel Giles, Wesley Giles, Catherine Ritchie, and Julie Schwerzer. Would you please come up? So, members of the Board of Education and our community, I'd like to recognize 3 of our 4 National Merit semifinalists here this evening. As you remember from previous years, the National Merit recognition is the highest level of recognition that a student can receive having leaving their 10th grade year and taking the PSAT. We are incredibly proud of these 3 students who are not only incredibly gifted in their education, but they are also very involved in their education, in extracurricular activities. To illustrate that fact, they actually need to leave as soon as they shake your hands because they have a concert to get to. So again, we'd like to recognize and congratulate these 3 exemplary students from Gahanna Lincoln High School. Congratulations.
I know you all have to run, so don't just run. Hope the Pops concert goes well. Okay. I think I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Deagle again to explain our Heart and Pride Award and welcome our first recipients.
Yes, Madam President, thank you so much. We are incredibly excited this evening to officially kick off our Heart and Pride Award. For those of you who have already read our information on this, you will remember that our Heart and Pride Award recognizes any staff member who has been nominated by a student, by a fellow colleague, or by a parent or anyone in our community who exemplifies what it means to be a Gahanna Jefferson staff member in service to our students. So we received 59? Oh, I'm so sorry, 70 nominations this first time, which I think speaks to how excited our community is to formally recognize our wonderful staff. So 70 nominations, and through a process which includes retired educators helping to make the determination of the strength of the nomination. Our very first 2 recipients were unveiled last week and this week. And so right now I'd like to call Carol Knott, 8th grade ELA teacher from Middle School East, and her proud principal Brad Barboza up here, please. There are a lot of words on this paper from multiple nominations for Mrs. Knott. I'd like to read just a few that I feel really speaks to her gift that she gives us every single day. Carol Knott personifies the spirit of Gahanna pride. When I was a student at GMSE, Mrs. Knott inspired me to pursue my loves of language and literature by providing me with so many unique opportunities to read and discuss the classics. I love that. She opened my mind to the wide world of books, and from that year on, I was hooked. Here's another one. Carol Knott has been a teacher in the district for 30 plus years. She continually strives for excellence in herself and expects it with her students. Mrs. Knott's students continually come back to Middle School East after leaving 8th grade to see her and to show her how they are stepping it up. I believe that's something you say to them, stepping it up. They thank her for pushing them so much and grin ear to ear when speaking of all that they have accomplished, knowing that she would be so proud of them. Carol Knott, we are so proud of you, and it is incredibly humbling to read what others say about you and your impact. And I'd like to invite Mr. Barboza to also say a few things.
Thank you for giving me the chance to talk about Mrs. Knott. She loves being in front of people and being the spotlight on her. She also, this is not the only saying that the students would know you by, but Mrs. Knott is one of those rare teachers that has this unique ability to challenge and push students to do the best that they could possibly do in her class, and also keeping her arms around them and loving them through all of the challenges that go along with being a 13-year-old student. She is a terrific staff member, a wonderful teacher. We have staff and family here who are here just to honor Mrs. Knott tonight. So thank you all for coming, including one entire family who 2 of the 4 members of the family actually now work at Middle School East, and that's no small thanks to Mrs. Knott as well. She is one, as a principal, who I lean on and talk to and ask, we've got this tough decision coming up, Mrs. Knott, what do you think? And she has wise words for me, for the kids, for everybody on the staff whenever someone's in need. So we so much appreciate everything you've done for the kids, for the staff, for myself. Mrs. Knott, this is truly a great reward for you. Thank you.
Would you like to say anything?
So I was completely surprised. Last Friday, we had a standing only staff meeting notice, which usually means something really negative, unfortunately. But as Dr. Deagle said, we're changing that narrative. And so when she called my name, I was kind of looking around thinking, So I truly appreciate this honor. It has been a pleasure. I will say, I believe this is my last year working in the district. I said that last year, but this year I really mean it. I really mean it. But it has truly been a pleasure being in this district and working with children and other staff members. I've seen probably every turnover in the curriculum that there could be. I've been through every testing phase that there could be. But through it all, it has truly been my pleasure. It has truly been a blessing. When I came here 31 years ago now, I didn't know that I would still be here at this stage, but I am, and I still enjoy coming to work. And it doesn't feel like a job. It feels like I'm actually coming to do something that I enjoy doing. And I'm just getting old and a little tired. So I think it's time to make that decision. But again, thank you so much, Dr. Deagle. Thank you, Mr. Barboza. This man has been awesome in the years that he has been at East. And I've taught some of your children, and it has truly been a pleasure to have them in my classroom and to get to know you as parents. And I have to say to Vince, where's Vince? I have to say to Vince, because Vince was one of my former students. And so, this family, this has been part of what I like to call my legacy. Because we have to leave a legacy. That's important. It's not about a paycheck. It's not about how many years. It's leaving a legacy. And my goal is always excellence. I try to require it of myself and require it of other people. And if you don't require excellence, then what are they there for? That level is different for everybody, but the goal is to get there. So again, thank you. I'm going to stop talking. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Deagle. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. I would also like to just take a moment to thank our Lincoln Fab Lab, who created the awards for this point going forward. And these are pretty amazing, created by our students. So we are so proud. We just think they're perfect. So our second award recipient, this very first month of the award, with 70 nominations coming in for various people. Our second one is Tammy Hugie, second grade teacher at Lincoln Elementary. If she would please join me with her proud principal, Claire Giardino. So we had the great pleasure of letting Tammy know that she was a recipient on Monday morning, and we read a few words that have been written about her. There were many as well. She's just so phenomenal. Lots of exclamation points. My daughter loved learning in her class, and the environment was always welcoming. As a parent, I've never once worried about her being under her care. She treats every child as her own. She's also really communicative with all of the parents, updating us on progress, not just during conferences, and providing inclusive opportunities for us to give back to the class as well. Here's another nominator. Mrs. Hugie is just amazing. She takes the time to make relationships with students. She cares about her students. There have been so many times that I have witnessed Mrs. Hugie going the extra mile by checking on students even after school hours. A third nominator. She is constantly helping the children, taking the time to assist them if they're having issues with a subject in school, spending extra hours teaching, making the kids feel loved and heard with simple gestures. Not only does she make the kids feel heard, she will listen to parental concerns about how our kids are doing, and she will give advice. Mrs. Hugie, we are so honored to have you as a member of our staff, and we are so appreciative that you continue to call Gahanna home. Congratulations.
I don't have a lot to say. I just feel very honored. I was shocked. I mean, like she said that so a lot of times when we call everybody together, other than a staff meeting, we're always like, okay. I just know that Claire's always really emphasized to us to, at the beginning of the year, set academics aside for a little bit and develop relationships. And I really feel that it pays off, and it really helps the rest of the year go very smoothly. So I always appreciate that permission to get to know our students and our families. And I feel very honored. I've been in this district as a kid and as an adult for a very long time. But I feel very fortunate to be able to work in Gahanna and be a part of this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please. I would like to also just remind all of our listening community that nominations are always open, and those who have been nominated, those 70 that have, will continue to be in the mix for future recognition, but we will welcome more and more for those who wish. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Deagle. I told you guys that was the best part of the agenda. Not to put any pressure on anyone that follows that, but it's just, it is the best part of serving on the board when we have the opportunity to recognize students and staff, or students or staff. It's just the best thing. Okay, so we are on our school and community reports and presentations, and tonight for Student Council, we've got Isa Rivera.
Hello, my name is Isabella Rivera. I'm Vice President of Gahanna Lincoln Student Council, and I'm speaking on behalf of Dylan Raymond, our President. As we are still in the beginning of the school year, we have worked very hard to start everything back up, including our committees, events, and community service. Last we spoke, we had homecoming in 2 days. Homecoming went wonderfully. We made around $14,000 in profit, which is used to fund our wellness, diversity, philanthropy, and leadership initiatives throughout the school year. Next up, we have Den Day, which is an event to find your pride and pack here at GLHS to improve a sense of belonging and boost participation. That is something that's very important and close to our hearts, as we have so many opportunities here for us. We have certain classes, clubs, and even sports that will have tables set up in the gym during lunch, and tables are run by their members. Lastly, we started the planning process for Gehannathon, which is a Gehanna's event that we hold through Buckathon to raise money for the hematology and oncology units through the James Hospital. This event will take place on January 20th. We usually have fun games and activities. Last year, the school board came and they played a brutal battle of dodgeball against our staff. You had to be there, but thank you for that. We appreciate your attendance and participation. And that pretty much summarizes our student council work for this month. Thank you.
Thank you, Isa. Next, from Gehanna Jefferson Education Association, Casey Koshek and Jesse Price. Did I even get close? No, how is it pronounced? Not even close. Koskik. Okay.
Hi, I'm Casey. I'm a first grade teacher at Royal Manor Elementary and one of our building reps.
And I'm Jessie Price, and I'm also a first grade teacher at Royal Manor and a building rep.
On behalf of GJEA, we want to thank the board and Superintendent Deagle for recognizing two of our finest members, Carol Knott and Tammy Hugie, who were recently recognized as the Heart and Pride Award recipients. They are fabulous educators who deserve the praise, and we also want to wish them congratulations for all of their hard work and dedication to the children of Gehanna. And we wanted to share just a few updates from our building at Royal Manor. So we recently had our PTA walkathon a few weeks ago. This was our first time doing it in the fall as a separate event from our field day, which we had done for the last few years. And it was really successful. We had some members of the high school marching band and cheerleading team come and help us kick it off. And then as our walkathon was finished, we raised over $8,000 for our school PTA, which was fantastic.
All right, and some other things happening at Royal Manor. We are in the second year of our buddy program, where students have a buddy from another grade level. Our first big event was a field trip to Sunpoint Park, where all students and staff walked to the park and to complete team building activities and spend some time with their buddies. Coming up, we have our Veterans Day Assembly on November 10th, and this is a special event to recognize and honor veteran staff members and family members in our school community.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. I know it's a long day for you. Next, from OPSI Local 399, Mal Miller.
Hello, Mal Miller, Union President for Local 399, Custodial and Maintenance. I'll keep this short and sweet. So I first want to congratulate one of our own custodians, Minnie Mitchell Lavender, 27-year career, retired September 30th. So I hope she enjoys it. And I have currently accepted the manager position, and I am excited. I want to give a few thanks. I want to thank all of my administrators for trusting in me, believing that I can take care of the job, serve honorably. I want to thank Chapelfield, especially Chapelfield. Part of my success is due to them and the culture that they were there with. Sorry, chokes me up. was a long 10 years, and I loved it, every day of it. I can't thank the staff, the community, all my current administrators there. I couldn't thank them anymore. I love them. I'll miss them. But I'll see them around. You know, I'm always in and out of buildings. Like to thank Mrs. Williams, Mrs. Whitfield for, you know, believing in me too and accepting me for the job. And I want to give a special thanks to the custodians at the high school. You know, Robert, Brian, Jason Johnson, Jason Littleton, Debbie, Luke, Taval, and I want to give a special thanks to Emerson Santos. The guy is a trooper. I know he also applied for the job. He definitely could have been just as good as I was. I mean, as soon as I hit the door, I mean, all the information that, you know, he comes to me with, just a team player, all out. And I couldn't have a better transition. So I'm going to end it with that, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you.
Congratulations, Mal. Chapel Field will miss you, and the high school will be very happy to have you there every day. See you, Mal. Okay, next from OPSI Local 249, Jerry Moore.
Good evening. I'm going to start this evening and thank you all for several things. One is we are in receipt of 3 brand new school buses. Yay. And we're in the process of getting them inspected, and they've actually already been integrated at various times into the fleet. So you'll see them around the road, and you'll recognize them because they're way more yellow than anything else on the road out there. We spent the last month doing a lot of administrative things at the bus garage. It was our annual head count month. We spend the week counting every student that gets on the bus, every student that gets off the bus. We turn those in and submit them to the state. It's required by law, and that's how we get money. So it's important that we pay attention and are very accurate with that. We also completed our required emergency evacuation drills this past month at the elementary and middle school level. We're still trying to work some details at the high school out. The construction really constricts the space available to safely load and unload kids. And so we're trying to work out how we're going to get that done, but we'll figure something out. I'd also like to thank you for we are getting a monthly visit from a power wash company that's keeping our buses clean for us. So it's one of those things where we've long wanted, people were very frustrated about the only way the buses ever got washed is when it rained. So now that's not the case. The buses are getting power washed at least once a month, and probably a little more frequently than that. I do have to let you know that nothing has really changed since the last month. We are super stretched thin. We have lots of drivers, myself included, that are running double midday routes, but so far we've gotten everything filled. People are happy with an opportunity to make a little extra money, so that's working out so far. I do have good news to report with our road construction project. Nothing official yet, but I can tell you that they were striping the road out there today, which is usually one of the last things that's done. So my anticipation, and I hate to jinx it, is by Wednesday, since there's no school Monday or Tuesday, by Wednesday that road will probably be opened back up. At least my fingers are crossed, and that'll help a great deal. And then, of course, the last thing for us is we have a long 4-day weekend, and it's actually a 3.5-day weekend for us because we have a paid professional development day Tuesday. So we will all either, private schools are still in, so we will all either be in driving our private school routes, or we will be in some sort of a class that morning. And so not sure what the topic is going to be yet, but I'm sure it'll be something exciting. So and that's it. So thank you very, very much.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, So we are going to go to board reports, and we will start with a report from Finance and Facility Committee, Mrs. Mooring.
Had our Finance and Facilities meeting 2 days ago, and we were excited to get a report on the quarter, our first fiscal quarter ended September 30th, and we are ahead on revenues and under on expenses, projected expenses, which is wonderful. So that's always the report we want to get. And we also did a kind of a deep dive on all funds, just a summary of where they are year to date, because we use fund accounting, so all of the government funds and things like that are not part of general fund. And then we started the meeting with a Finance and Facilities report. Our high school is fortified underground, and I think we got the report that our steel will start coming at the end of the month, and a crane will be there shortly after. Middle School East is scheduled to be finished by the end of this calendar year, and they're just doing punch list things at the 2 elementary schools. So all very good trends on that front. We also had a report on the financials related to the construction funds for Phase 2. And at this point, we're tracking just as we had anticipated. So that discussion was also very robust. And I encourage you, if you want to learn more details, to go to the website, and it's on a YouTube channel, and you can watch the entirety of the meeting.
Thank you, Mrs. Mooring. Next, an update from Eastland Fairfield, Mr. Manley.
All right, so the Eastland Fairfield report, I would like to tell you that they were invited to be a part of the Trade Expo at the Franklin County Fairgrounds, so they were really excited to participate in that. And they did some demonstrations, hands-on learning. They had a booth, so they had sophomores and juniors partaking and figuring out what it's all about. Admin was there, and they're talking about future possibilities. There were the school, the district's going through the typical repair and renovation projects, starting from the roof all the way down to underground. And so they're moving forward on that. They had a meeting with Franklin County Renovation Project with an architect and Pepper Construction. So they're doing exterior storm drain work, and site packaging is moving ahead. And Assistant Superintendent Blackstone visited, got classrooms here in Gahanna, the satellite program, so she was excited. I could feel it when she was talking about it. She really enjoyed meeting everyone and watching the students in action with the hands-on learning, so that was really nice to see and hear. Career Services has hosted over 60 K through 8 staff members from our associate schools. And so they do that, their PD on career exploration and just kind of cementing the partnerships and seeing how it could be a win-win together. And the event timed out with a launch of their new career exploration webpage, which is eastlandfairfield.com/careerkits. And then moving on, they are already talking more about expanding their summer school offerings and summer programming. But for now, winter is coming, along with on November 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, sophomore visits at Eastland, and then November 15th, 16th, 17th, sophomore visits for Fairfield and Satellites. And December 7th, you should save for their open house. It's really fun. We've been, and it's really fun going into all the classrooms. That's my report. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Manley. Next, we have from Mrs. Horn, Parks and Rec, and update from Insurance Committee.
Be brief. We had our meeting for Parks and Rec last Wednesday. The big news out of that meeting really is preparing for the Great Gehenna Goblin Fest at Academy Park. So hoping for great weather and lots of participation in that. It's always a big event. And this year Cherry Bottom Road will be open, so hopefully it won't be as bad for people to get there. They're working on the Price Road renovation project. If anybody doesn't know where Price Road is, it's beyond the Gehenna pool, the main pool. The trail, Big Walnut Trail kind of ends there. It's going to be an outdoor center for classes and other programming, and that should be finished by next June, I think is when they want that finished. And just more progress on the overall master plan. So that was really it for Parks and Rec. Oh, also the Hops and Vines had a record-breaking event. So that was great news. It was a perfect night. So they were very happy with that, and that will also help provide a lot of opportunity for scholarships for students. On the Insurance Committee, we are actually getting set for our next meeting, which is Monday, October 30th, after school at 4:30. So there'll be more to report from that next meeting. That's it.
Mrs. Horn. Next, Mrs. Coates has report out from Student Learning and Achievement and Gehenna Jefferson Education Foundation.
Thank you. I'll be sending all of you a link that from a research study done by OSBA. And it talked about by 2030, the demand for social skills is projected to skyrocket by 26% across all industries. And that social interactions are not just necessary on the job, but necessary to get a job. And the estimated about 50% of jobs are obtained through personal connections. However, 83% of students aren't confident enough to seek career advice from adults in their lives, much less new adults in their lives, and the lack of networking and strong social skills will hamper them in the working world. So they talked about candid conversations, practice, and having students share their own expertise with adults can kind of get that practice going and help them feel comfortable around adults so that when it's networking time, they are a lot more comfortable. So having them give tours of schools, having them talk about something they're passionate about helps give them the practice they need at an early age. So I thought that was really interesting. They also talked about that AI, artificial intelligence, is here to stay, but in order for everyone to use AI as a true innovative tool, soft skills are even more important. And so the showing empathy, problem solving, crucial conversations is desired even more now across all industries. And it's because machines can't replace those skills, and that working with AI in the right way as a robust tool, you need to be able to work with stakeholders across all different departments and disciplines. And so I just felt like knowledge is power, and they had a lot of good tips of what we can do for our students to help them get prepared and feel more comfortable. So you'll see more about that study tonight when I send the link. All right, and then going to Gehenna Jefferson Education Foundation. So this is exciting. This week, the committee for the Cornerstone and the Alumni Hall of Fame met to make selections. They want to thank the committee who made the excellent selections from a very competitive pool of candidates. And they're very excited about this year's Cornerstone and GLHS Alumni Hall of Fame. And I get to announce who they are to all of you. So for the Cornerstone, the inductees will be Christine Shanks, retired occupational therapist of GJPS, Carol McPeak, long-term substitute teacher, primarily she served at Royal Manor, Sharon Tomko, GJEF board member and former GJEF executive director and longtime volunteer of our district and schools, Cindy Maciosi, retired Lincoln theater teacher and director. And then for the Gehenna Lincoln High School Alumni Hall of Fame, Alicia Turley, class of 2005, and Lindsay Kovac, class of 2001, are the founders and directors of LEN, L-E-N-N, Foundation for Children with Cerebral Palsy. Brent Bossie is the class of 2004. He's the founder, president, CEO of BBI Logistics. Robert Fry, class of 1972, business owner, fitness entrepreneur, woodworker, and pastor. So those are our inductees. The ceremony will take place in December, and they're working on the details to determine the exact date and time at Lincoln High School. So more information to come. And then the Monster Dash will be Saturday, October 28th at 10 a.m. There are 11 corporate sponsors that are also sponsoring the gala. So big thank you to those sponsors. There are also 155 dashers as of this Monday. There's still time for people to sign up, and you can wear your costume to dash, but t-shirts are limited right now. And just a reminder, the Veterans Day ceremony is at 9 a.m. on Thursday, November 9th. And they are starting the planning process to select tools for sensory hallways in the elementary school buildings, which was the Fund a Need project at last year's gala. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Mrs. Coates. I am going to hold my legislative update until next month when things have moved a little bit through committee. So we are going to go to public participation. I'm going to read a short explanation about how public participation works. While I do that, I only have one slip for public participation. So if there was anyone else who intended to address the board this evening, you have a little bit of time while I read this paragraph. Board meetings provide the opportunity for board members to conduct the business of the board in a productive and efficient manner. Board meetings are not intended to be a meeting of the community. However, during regular meetings, there's an opportunity for community members to address the board. During public participation, there should be no expectation for dialogue or response. However, the board will take all comments under advisement and refer appropriate information to the administration for action or follow-up. The board president presides over public participation and will enforce the rules set by the board. Comments should be directed to the board president and are limited to 3 minutes unless time is extended by the board president. The board president may interrupt, warn, or terminate a participant's session when they make comments that are repetitive, obscene, and/or comments that constitute a true threat, or request any individual to stop speaking or leave the meeting when that person does not observe reasonable decorum or is disruptive to the conduct and/or orderly progress of the meeting. Under these parameters, as further explained in Board Policy 0169.1, we will proceed with public participation. We don't have the timer this evening. Well, we've got Mrs. White who's going to keep time, but we don't have the electronic timer this evening. So the way that it'll work is that I've already got the slip with your name and your information, so you don't need to give me any of that. But once I call you up, Mrs. White will start timing. She will let you know when time is up, when you've hit 3 minutes. If you're not finished with what you have to say, you can request an additional 2 minutes, and as long as you're not repeating, that additional 2 minutes will be granted. And again, since we don't have the electronic timer tonight, there's not a warning, so she'll just let you know when time is up. So the slip, with all that being said, the one slip that I have is from Mario Maciosi. Welcome, Mr. Maciosi.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, board members. Thank you, Executive Committee. I'm here for really one reason, just to say thank you, first and foremost, to the district, and thank you to Mr. Hetzel. We have been in discussion with the district for approximately 13 months regarding some changes that were made to the tree line area behind our home with the High Point renovation. Some of you are aware of that situation. Unfortunately, Mr. Hetzel came into the conversation after the fact, after the leaving of one of your former employees, Scott Lofton. So unfortunately, Cliff had to pick up the ball on the information. He had to pick up the ball on the communication. And I can't thank him enough, Cindy and I both, for the way he has handled the entire situation for us. It's certainly not what we were hoping for in terms of where the outcome basically was for how the back looks, but Cliff has been extremely cooperative and the district has been extremely cooperative. I actually even sent you some pictures this evening. We have staked out the location. We're going to be planting 18 arborvitaes across our back area so that it's green space. It's going to look very, very nice. It's going to be done by Oakland Nursery. And the district has been kind enough to allow us to put that tree planting between our property line and actually on your property line. So we appreciate that very, very much. Cliff was in a very difficult situation. Some commitments were made by Scott Lofton that were not followed through on and were not taken care of. Cliff stepped in and very professionally helped us through the situation, and we appreciate that very, very much. Cliff is going to bring information to your workshop on November 2nd for additional discussion. I've made some individual packets of information of both the chronology of everything that went on since last year on, I believe, the 22nd of September through basically our meeting that we had on Tuesday. I've incorporated pictures for you to see both befores and afters. Hopefully those will assist you as you look at the discussion items during the workshop. And if needed, we'll be available to attend the board meeting on the 16th of November if that's necessary to further the discussion in any way. But certainly Cindy and I just want to thank you as the district, Cliff, for your help. Again, you came in a really difficult situation. We really appreciate what you've helped us through, and we can't say enough about how the district has really supported this, and we thank you very much.
Give Dr. Deagle a minute because the next thing on the agenda is the superintendent's report. I was trying to drag that out, but it started to feel a little awkward.
Ready. So good evening again. First of all, I would like to begin my report this evening by sharing my sincere gratitude and appreciation for our principals in this district. This is National Principal Month. Jill treated them to some crumble cookies at one of our board meetings. We have a phenomenal group of principals and assistant principals in our district, some of the most professional people I have ever had the pleasure of working with and serving alongside of. So we just are so appreciative. I know I speak on behalf of Jill and Cliff and Eric when I say thank you to our principals for all that they do, the hours that they put in to serving our students, our staff, and our families. Also, in the vein of gratitude, I would like to thank our communications team for their hard work in lifting the Heart and Pride Award. From design, the conception of the program when I said this is what I want to do, and they ran with it. So thank you, Eric and Judy, for your work with the Heart and Pride Award. We had a busy day today. They're all busy days and they're wonderful. But today we hosted the Ohio Department of Public Safety when they launched Ohio Safe Streets, Safe Schools, their campaign, where they really are hoping that all of our community will focus, including our young people, focus on safe practice getting to school, safe practice while in school, and safe practice leaving and getting home. And so we first met with members of the Department of Public Safety and one of our senior government classes and a few of our students from the Superintendent Advisory Group, alongside our Public Safety Director for the City of Gahanna, Tim Becker, and our Chief of Police, Jeff Spence, who you all know well. So we listened to our students as they answered questions from Department of Public Safety on what makes them feel safe, what makes them feel less safe or insecure, and what it would take from the state to make sure that every one of our students buckles up before when they get in the car. I was really pleased to hear that many of our students pointed to our SROs for what makes them feel safe and showed a lot of appreciation for that. And one of the things they pointed to for making them feel unsafe is just how full our high school is. And that's something that we're solving for with our new building. And so I hate that they feel crowded right now, but I'm pleased that we have the solution on the horizon. And then we transitioned into a media event where there was an announcement made to the media. It was on Channel 10 and some social media outlets this afternoon. And they afforded me the opportunity to speak to what work we've been doing as a district and showing appreciation for those partners that we have. So we were really pleased to have hosted that event for the Department of Public Safety. Also participated in the Big Table event in Gahanna at the Gahanna Y, and we had some really rich conversation about how it started with how we can support our young people, and then it morphed into how do we support our families? Because if we support our families, we're supporting young people, but we adults need support too. It's really hard for us too. So that was a really neat conversation, and we look forward. Already I have an email to follow up that conversation further. Really thank you to Mrs. Brown, Pickle, Antonio, Mrs. Mooring, and all of our community members who attended our coffee this week. I love the information that I collect in that forum, and it's something I look forward to each time. I've been continuing to visit our staff meetings. Just as a reminder, I've asked to attend each building staff meeting this first semester because we didn't get to see them all in one place at convocation. I plan to repeat that second semester and just sharing some information about the district and opening it up for questions as well. So I'm getting some great information there. And I spoke to GJEA last night. It's not called their exec, but it's where their reps from each of the buildings come and meet, and had an hour-and-a-half conversation at that event, which was wonderful. We have some true professionals, and I love hearing more about their experiences and receiving their feedback. And we continue to meet with our PTO presidents every month as well. So a lot of external engagement, but I've also been making my way to some buildings as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Deagle. Next, we are going to move on to financial business. There are 3 items for action under letter I. Is there a motion to approve item number I4, which is approval of financial business items I1 through I3?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Mooring. Is there a second? Thank you, Mrs. Horn. Any discussion? I know that there was lots of discussion about these items on Tuesday at Finance and Facility, so is there any additional discussion, I should say?
We didn't talk about Tuesday was the appropriation, and it's a small government fund, right?
It's actually a thank you from ODE of some extra network connectivity funds that they had set aside. So it's just a thank you for continuing to use those funds. So it's $507.10.
Very small, $570.
Yes.
But we have to process it,
Yeah.
right? Yes.
Mr. Manley? Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Mooring?
Yes.
Mrs. Coates? Yes. Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We are going to move on to our Assistant Superintendent, Mrs. Elliott.
Thank
Thank you. Good evening. Just a few updates. As we have bigger projects going on, I like to just give updates along the way. So a quick update on our school start time project and the high school bell schedule project. Starting first with the high school bell schedule project. Mrs. Williams has gone back to meet with her steering committee to further look at some of the options. She has met with several students at the high school to gather feedback on the options as well from the student perspective. Has been having individual discussions with various department leaders just to make sure how the schedules could potentially impact them, is considered, specifically with Lincoln Live and both of the band directors, so making sure all of those factors are being considered. Working with one of her steering committee members in particular to plan out lunch periods and kind of try and fine tune different things that have come up along the way. We originally were thinking we were going to be sharing tonight about where we've landed, but we continue to work through some of the questions that have come up and kind of refine and finalize things. So in the very near future, but we continue to work through that process. With the school start time project, I'm happy to report that we are on track. Today we had our final data submission meeting and seemed to be in a really good place. Very grateful to Mr. Hetzel and the transportation team and the technology team. It's been a lot of us coming together to refine some of our data, update some of our data, and get it ready for us to make sure we're considering all things related to transportation, because those really directly impact where our start times can land. Making sure that we can get students to school and home from school. The steering committee got together this week and poured through all of the feedback that we've gathered from all of the various groups and looked for trends and picked out some of the bigger considerations that once we get some of the options, we need to make sure, does this work? How does this, how do we fix this? Those types of things. And we're hoping to have some of those options kind of nailed out that we'll be looking at in the next few weeks and bringing back to our family focus group at the beginning of November before we are ready to share in December with the whole district. So definitely moving along. Also at our last work session, we gave an update on the equity and access plan. We had our first parent advisory group meeting last night. It went over an hour. There was so much great discussion. And we're so appreciative to the ideas that we get from that group every time we're together. They gave us great ideas related to additional business partnerships and additional information about sessions that they're interested in learning and hearing more about at our next community university event. So wonderful discussion. Our action teams are meeting currently now and really getting those implementation tasks drafted and in the works. I just wanted to highlight we do have Monday and Tuesday off next week. Monday is our conference comp day. Tuesday is one of our regular professional development days that we've always had on the calendar, where it's half professional development and half teacher work day. And then we'll welcome the kids back on Wednesday. And then in my first section, we have 2 overnight trips that are on the agenda for you to consider approval this evening.
Thanks, Mrs. Elliott. Is there a motion to approve item number J3, which is approval of item J2? That sounds funny when I say it.
So moved.
Mrs. Coates, is there a second? Mr. Man, it's me. I know. Any discussion about that item? Okay, Mrs. White, can you call the roll, please?
Antonio,
Yes.
Mrs. Mooring,
Yes.
Mrs. Coates,
Yes.
Mrs. Horn,
Yes.
Mr. Manley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. On letter K, do you have anything additional that you wanted to? Okay. So we're on letter K, and item K30 is a motion. Is there a motion to approve items K2 through K27? Thank you, Mrs. Mooring. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Manley. Any discussion about any of these items?
So I'm hearing our award winner tonight say that she's going to retire, and then you read some of the the retirement announcements here, and it's like, oh wow, they've impacted so many students in just such wonderful ways that it's hard. It's hard to say yes on that.
Yes, thank you to the staff that we have on the list tonight to approve for retirement for all of the years of service that they gave to so many students. And it is hard to vote to approve that, but also we wish them the very best. They've earned it. Any additional discussion? Okay, Mrs. White, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Waring,
Yes.
Mrs. Coates,
Yes.
Mrs. Horn,
Yes.
Mr. Manley. Mrs. Pickle Antonio.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we are on letter L, and I am going to turn it over to Mr. Hetzel as our Chief Operating Officer.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, everyone. I will respond to Mr. Maciosi's comments tonight. It was something that I have been working on this month, and I'm prepared to share with the Board a donation agreement being developed with the Maciosis. It will spell out the terms of the donation and installation of plantings they have proposed to make to the district. So you will have that opportunity to review that here in the next few days. Mal Miller took my opportunity to recognize him too. I was going to mention to you that Mr. Miller is the custodial manager position at the high school now, and he took Miss Minnie's spot. She was a legend, wonderful person, and he's very excited to be there. And our team has met a couple of times, and I'm looking forward to working with him and Dwayne Hawk and some of the others as we're preparing to go into our new high school and talk about how we want that to look and work. So I think we're very, very excited about that, and I'm happy that that Mal's in that position. So that's great. In regard to the board agenda tonight, you're going to be voting on a couple of resolutions for purchases in response to grant awards that we've received, but more importantly to safety initiatives that we're behind. But to speak to them just a little bit, we've been talking about a two-way radio interoperability network. This will allow our buildings, we're integrating transportation, maintenance, everybody to receive an emergency call. So there'll be an all-call opportunity on all of our two-way radios. Will allow there to be an administrative channel for the district to communicate on, and then we'll have programming within the buildings and departments to be able to do, routine operations. So we're excited about that, and Jen Korn has done a wonderful job of writing grants for us. She's very thorough and detailed. Matt Blackwell, like everything, he's involved in everything that we do, and he's been very helpful. So we're also taking the opportunity to upgrade a couple of things. So we have been on a VHF radios. VHF radios are more longer distance, shorter waves. That works for transportation, not in buildings so well. So we're also going to upgrade our radios to UHF. So that'll be something that will help communications within the building. Sometimes they struggle to talk even on the other side of that. And the repeaters will be within the buildings. It'll be IP, Internet Protocol. So they're almost like little computers. So we're excited about that upgrade. Surveillance is on there too. This is in total a $1.2 million grant. The project, if we can get everything done possible, we're hoping to spend all of that money. It's a 2-cycle grant, so there's a very small amount that has to be spent by the end of this calendar year. You're seeing a small amount of what this project will be. But in working with Bricker on this, we talked about a resolution that gave us flexibility, but still, because it's federally funded, we don't have purchasing statutes or bidding statutes that we have to comply with, but we want to be responsible, and we're using federal money. So we wanted to make sure we're laying this all out properly. So this first one is really for kind of the backbone of the network that we're building for the surveillance camera system upgrade. And we have the flexibility to amend this into the future. If we decide we want to continue to work with Forward Edge all the way through the project, we can. Or if we feel like we find other contractors along the way that might be better for a certain sequence or part of the project, we'll stay in touch with that to try to do, create the best value we can along the way. So you might be seeing a little more activity. We'll kind of keep you along with that. But I think this is keeping us in line with compliance on how to manage the grant funds, but also give us flexibility to build the solution that we want. Also, in regard to Jerry's comments regarding staffing, the ops department is working together, all of our department heads and Adam Kunkel in HR, and we're identifying the process steps in recruiting, onboarding, transitioning employees. And so we're going to try to really focus on that and make sure we have a queue lined up of candidates and try our best to keep all these positions filled. And so we've already got that on the books to start doing that. And it seems to be the most sensitive item that we deal with in operations right now, is just making sure that we have the staffing in place. So we're going to continue to focus on that. A couple of other highlights. In the maintenance area, we are evaluating water treatment systems that we think might be able to help support our mechanical systems a little bit better. So we might trial them at a building or two to see if we can extend longevity and improve performance with our mechanical systems. And we're also evaluating all of our vestibules now that we've done the secured entries projects. Now we're going back to the other areas that have vestibules or other secured spaces to say, is this all operating the same way? And so we've talked to some SROs and first responders and looked at it. So we're going to modify some of our older vestibules to make sure that they all operate the same. Something that we're working on. And then finally, a transportation update. Just as Jerry had said, we are power washing and cleaning. It does two things. It's an investment for the community. It gives us a little pride. We should take care of our stuff. But it also does, again, extend the life of equipment when you take care of it and things don't build up underneath the frame and all the other things that we deal with. So we think it's a smart investment to make sure we're spending time doing that. And then the student evacuation drills, as he had mentioned, were completed K through 8. And we think we're going to locate the high school drills perhaps at Peace Lutheran. And so we're talking about a space that gives them the opportunity to have the kids go through all of those drills. And we're required to do that once annually. It's pretty important. And so I got to give Krista credit on that. She's very busy, but no, we got to do this. And it was count week last week. That information has become very helpful for Jill. As we're gathering data for putting our bell time schedules together, so that has worked out well, but all current updated information, so thank you.
Thank you, Cliff. Were you about to say something?
Thank you. I was inspired just learning more about the school safety grant, and just think it's a super smart investment, and yeah, just look forward to that for the staff and everybody. Yeah.
It's a wonderful grant receipt. So thank you to Jen Cornyn. I don't know who else helped work on that grant proposal, but it's wonderful. Yeah. Yes. Yep. Is there a motion to approve item number L7, which is approval of items L2 through L6? Thank you, Mrs. Horn. Is there a second? I'll second. Thank you, Mrs. Coates. Any discussion or questions about any of these items? Mrs. White, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Coates? Yes. Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Manley? Yes. Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Mooring?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We are on letter M. So I recently was reminded, or maybe I didn't know, but I think Mr. Dangle has already left, but I recently learned that the school board actually has the opportunity to appoint a board member to the Gahanna Area Arts Council. And so I am going to appoint Mrs. Coates, if she's willing to accept that appointment, to the Gahanna Area Arts Council. I know that it is already October, so This will be an appointment that we do annually, but hopefully you will be able to spend a little bit of time this year with the Gahanna Area Arts Council so that we know what we are getting ourselves into with that appointment next year. Thanks, Mrs. Coates. Did you?
I'm happy to and very excited to be appointed. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion to go into executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 12122G1 for the purpose of discussing the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, compensation of an employee or official, or the investigation of charges or complaints? Thank you, Mrs. Horn. Is there a second? Thank you, Mrs. Mooring. Before I have you call the roll, Mrs. White, if there is anyone still watching, when the board goes into executive session, we will go off of the live stream. We will go into a separate room, and I think the live stream puts up a screen or something. Or no, actually, the live stream will end, I think. The board does have to come back into open public session after executive session, but the only board action that we'll be taking is to adjourn the meeting. Mrs. White, can you call the roll, please?
Ms. Horn? Yes. Mr. Manley? Yes. Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Mooring?
Yes.
Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Motion carries.
So it is 7:41 p.m. We'll take a short break and then we will go into executive session. Thanks, everybody.